Oh yeah, the next one was him looking at this tree here. For a long time, I noticed a lot of, like, when a character emerges, like when there's a similar thing that you draw a lot, one of the number one questions is like, what's his name? What's his name? And for now, I like to think of him as the observer.
I mean, I think that's a cool name for him.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the observer feels like the you that's aware that you might be experiencing psychosis when you don't know where you are. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, that is that guy. That's the observer, I think, is him too. Over here, he's like coming home or something, I don't know. He came home to find these things floating around in his room. He's just looking at him. And the first couple versions of him didn't really look how he looks now, but just like showing up every day at the same time and having a rigid, not rigid, but a devotion, like a practice to drawing him, he became more and more clear and more in focus. And I started to kind of feel his temperament, kind of what he is, what he's like. He started to feel real, you know what I mean? And
Well, let's talk about family.
cool.
Like you were showing us before, some of your art collaborations with the kids. I think it's cool how you bring them into the creativity to the stuff that you're working on, and like you were saying, some of it influences you as far as mediums and approaches and stuff. What do you think about that? How did that start?
It kind of started before I was aware of it even being the thing steering the ship. And, all the way back to the beginning of, I guess, tattooing and becoming a father all happened simultaneously. So it's kind of hard to say how anything would be if they weren't in the picture.
How do you manage like prioritizing and stuff? Like we're talking about trying to make time for everything. Do you feel like you're just letting everything down in your life all the time?
So that was definitely a huge thing I was grappling with, I would say 2 years ago, for a solid 4 years. It was like the theme of life, where it would be like feeling torn and pulled in two directions, where any time I'm devoting to art or tattooing is time I'm not devoting to being around my family and my children, and then vice versa. Like when I'm hanging out with them and just fully immersed in play or whatever they want to do, part of me is not present. It's thinking about the stuff I need to be doing to provide, and that hasn't really all come into a nice cohesive balance until about a year and a half, 2 years ago. There's been a balance of the two, and they both feed each other, and it also evolves with the ages that they are. Like when they were newborns, I didn't want to be anywhere else other than holding them, and then but also at the same time, it was easier to go on a guest spot for a couple of days, but then I started to notice every day they're brand new, and every day there's something new unfolding. So then I only would travel when I could bring them with me, and it's a hard question to answer because they're so intertangled, both. Like it's almost like they aren't separate actually at all. Like family life and making art or tattooing they're too interwoven, I guess. Yeah.
So do you think that the change was just that maybe they're old enough to kind of get in on your work focus more?
They're starting to be able to view, they've been on Earth long enough to see what other people do to provide and what other people have to do every day, they're starting to like appreciate, I guess, kind of, they're I don't know.
Yeah, just because I have seen you post stuff about like art collabs with the kids, and I always think that's so cool because I don't know anyone else that really shares that kind of stuff so much.
Well, they definitely,
and it's like in a genuine way, like you're really exploring stuff that you're exploring in those collaborations with them. You're not doing like some bullshit finger painting or something.
No, yeah. Well, it's crazy. It's connected. Everything I see, it's when I was their age, my mom would take me to like art museums and things, and I remember going to like the modern art section and looking at some of these paintings on the walls and being like, these are humans that are like alive, like now that are, I guess what I'm trying to say is, Should we get these dogs out of here?
It's okay. I have a feeling they'll come in and out.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess I've noticed, sorry guys. The reason I started kind of stumbling a little bit is because these things you're asking me are things that I think about every day, and they like echo around in my own head, and it's not often that I verbalize them, but I'm like excited to try to put them to words. So that's why I'm like, and I'm
Cool.
kind of getting.
Well, we've been out here
Yeah.
watching through your windows for years. We know a lot about your family, and the kids are asking me to get some answers. So, no, I kid. Well, I'm very interested in your own artistic quest, because you seem like your head's lit on fire. And you're like pursuing so much, and you put out so much, and it's interesting, and just the way that it like flows out from you is like super inspiring and super, I don't know. I want to know more about it.
So it's intertwined with the kids, I guess, and I've learned from the way they create. That's what has been. So I noticed that they just create with such freedom, and they're not full of preconceived notions or ideas or symbol sets or what something should look like. Now they're at the age where they're starting to. Like, they look at other artists, they're super into like anime and the way that kind of stuff is drawn and very formulaic. So, but they still, like, if the things I make they aren't excited about, I could tell I have messed up, because like it ties back to what I was talking about when I was a little kid, and my mom would take me to the art museum, and I would look at some of these paintings, and now at 30 I realized what I was seeing in these paintings that I loved so much was the ability to play. Like, meaning, like, I guess whoever made these pieces weren't really thinking about hours in a day or days in a week or years even in a, like, they were just fully immersed in playing, and I could see it unfolding through Leela and Arjuna. I could see it unfolding through my kids, the way they would just constantly produce cool things. So I'll show you, this is the first painting that I started after that mural when I was trying to chase that feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is where that little shape started to take place. And there's little versions of it kind of all throughout here. This one was the beginning of the automatics, really. It's just, I painted the whole thing black. And then, so it ties into what I was trying to say about my children, wanting to impress them. And my youngest, her favorite animal is sharks. And I started noticing that, like, they were not really interested in like looking at the stuff I was making around the time. So I was like, I'm gonna make something that hopefully can have them stoked. So what's funny is when this was done, one day I was like, where is Arjuna? Where is she? I came and I was looking around, and she was in here like this, just looking at like it. And I was like, it worked. Yes, it worked. But this one, it was just, I found a sweet spot where I could unfold that feeling of the automatic. It's so hard to explain, but like literally just like the big rough shape of the shark, and knowing what will come closer, and then just not really putting any thought into what's going on. Like, and then these shapes, believe it or not, they start as like rough rudimentary brush strokes, and then each layer that keeps coming forward is like when a camera is getting into focus, and all of a sudden these things appear that I didn't think of making. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, sometimes each shape you make will inform the next shape and the next shape, and it just kind of just goes.
Yes, exactly.
I think one of the things I notice in your work a lot, well, first, before we get too far away from what you're just saying, is I feel like freedom in art you see in kids, because exactly what you're saying, they're not affected, they don't have this rule set, they're not like striving to achieve a style or like the rigid stuff that we get our heads deep into sometimes.
Yes.
So you see that freedom in kids, and then almost the opposite, you see it in somebody who is very well developed. And I feel like, knowing your age and knowing your amount of time in tattooing, it seems rare for you to have the stuff that would be considered the most free is now appearing in your tattooing even. Because I feel like a lot of tattooers have like their art, like fine art or whatever, their art stuff is separate, and then there's the tattooing. And I feel like it can be hard to join that together. But the way that you're able to develop this imagery that is new, that is your own and super distinct in, pastel drawings and in paintings and in different stuff that is like not tattooy necessarily, but then you can also do it in a little clunky tattoo with big bold lines and bold colors and little tribal shapes around it and stuff like that. To me is so cool to see as you're developing.
Thank you. I honestly don't think any of that's intentional. What I've been noticing is like trying to throw myself to like whatever feels like play, not necessarily like having a concept, having it all planned out and then executing it. It's more like when we were little and we could just play with toys and you're not like, I'm Andrew playing with this toy. Like you are whatever you're doing,
Yeah.
And it's kind of remembering how to do that. Like, cause I feel like we've all been taught we forgot how to do that. And bringing that back in, I feel like you can use all the skills. It could be anything. It could be with building or dance or with anything, but like you take what you've honed in during your like time of becoming an adult and then you learn how to like shatter it and then play with all those pieces, And something that has been, it's cool to hear that you can see it in some of the tattoos because I don't necessarily see it. And
well, because you're seeing every little tiny step, every little piece of work that goes into it. But I think as an outsider, I can see, I see the steps maybe in a larger scale or just seeing stuff kind of come together, but
that's cool to hear.
Yeah.
Because I've started to notice a similar thing once I've stepped back and kind of look at the body of work over the past year. I've noticed just when I'm in it each day, it's play. It'll be like marker drawing. And then when my brain gets involved and I'm like, oh, maybe I could do this, or I drop it and I jump to the pastels. If that starts happening with that, I'll drop it and move to acrylic painting. If it happens with that, I'll just stop painting or making stuff that day. I'll just play with the family or, do something else completely different.
Yeah.
But I've noticed it's the first thing I was trying to talk about, how it's so intertwined. It's hard to talk about one or the other. I think why I was suffering with feeling I was being pulled between family and art is because I saw them as separate. But once I realized that they're not at all, things started to balance and harmonize. And that's what I've noticed. Basically, as cheesy as it sounds, it's like that's how it all is, I guess.
I mean, isn't that what it's all about, though? As far as family, giving every part of you to the family, and then letting the family enrich you as well. That's kind of ideal, I would say.
Yes.
I think not a lot of people necessarily achieve.
Yeah, I guess you're right, and I think it's cool to maybe lead by example. Like when we're just memories, kids will be like, I remember my dad was like always like working on something, but not in the way where he's like in a mysterious shed somewhere. Like he's here with us making
going to work.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Like I want us to paint in a studio, but the big reason I haven't made a jump to do any of that is because I can't imagine tattooing and then being like, I'll see you guys tomorrow. I'm going to the studio. Like I like being
that would keep
in
the
it.
separation in your life, probably.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Maybe one day you'll need a little separation. So like, fuck you, Dad.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Yeah, but until that day comes, I'm trying to cherish every second.
Yeah, and hey, maybe this kind of environment will avoid that. Some families stay really tight and really open, and it can be like a great, I don't know, teamwork, the whole thing, in a way that transcends like the parent-kid kind of thing.
Yeah, that's the dream.
Yeah, that's cool.
This one I was not really wanting to make a head or a figure of something. I wanted to just kind of have fun with the full-on everything automatic. So the first thing was just this shape. I was thinking mushrooms. No, not a mushroom. Maybe a pot. No, not a pot. And then and then that was like this was like really grappling with trying to stop listening to like thoughts and steering it. Like these were some of the workouts and heavy lifting to get rid of those built-in habits I had.
Let's talk about automatic drawing.
Oh yeah, cool.
That you've been doing a bunch of lately.
The automatic drawing, the furthest that has started to go is with actual just ink onto paper, but that started an interesting way. A couple of years ago, I did a mural in the lobby of a business, and it's just kind of like reverse Borneo shapes. But it's not Borneo, but it's kind of
it's like a weed store or something?
Yes, the lobby of a dispensary.
Yes.
And I spent 2 days kind of like penciling everything on, just the way I could see it hugging certain pipes and doorways and parts of the lobby.
Yeah.
And then lined it all with just a Posca marker, and then there was like 4 days worth of just filling in black. And my daughters and wife came in and they helped me one of the days, and then they left. And the next day I go in and I'm just filling in black, filling in black. I'm up on a ladder and I'm about 4 hours in on filling in black on this day. And all of a sudden I, it was scary. I thought I was experiencing like psychosis or something, but I couldn't remember my name, who I was, I was like, I know I have people that love me. Like there's 3 of them, you know, and I was trying to remember, and I knew if I like turned my head, this all happened in a split second. It's not like I was sitting there freaking out for a while. This was like an instant, but and I knew that if I turned my head to look where I was, then everything would come back. But part of me was like, I shouldn't have to turn my head to know what's going. I literally thought I was losing my mind, but it was a familiar feeling. Like it felt, the only thing similar to that feeling is, you know, psilocybin mushrooms that's the only thing that's similar to what I was trying to describe, but it was a split second. It wasn't like, and then everything came. Yeah, I thought I remembered, but there was a gap, which was freaky. And then I kind of wanted to welcome that feeling. It felt like a headspace that you could kind of bring on, you know?
Yeah.
So it didn't happen again that day. Like I was kind of shook by it happening, and I got done. I left. The next day though, I was like, I thought a lot about it the whole night into the next day, and I realized, like, I was like, maybe there's a couple things that led up to that. So I was thinking maybe it's the painting being so big that you can't see. Yeah, you're like, the peripheral is past your field of vision, and that mixed with automatic just filling in black, not thinking like, oh, I should put a line here, or what would this look, just autopilot. So a combination of like the passing the peripheral, the autopilot, and just all of that. So I was like, the next day I welcomed it, and sure enough, I could start to like welcome that feeling again. So then after the mural was done, then I started to create that same environment at home. So I started to paint bigger paintings where I would be right up on it and I couldn't see my peripheral, and it started to unlock certain things. And I started to notice, like, whenever you start a painting or anything, a tattoo, a book, or whenever you start something, it's almost like a vacuum is created, you know, and it can only be filled with the completion of that piece, or the just disowning, like, well, I guess it should be disowned the entire time. Like, that's part of it I've noticed as well. Like, you can't, well, I'm trying not to get tangential here with what I'm saying.
Let's go.
So,
I think that's unavoidable on this topic.
yes. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
But that's the whole thing, exploring the tangents, exploring the things that spring off of that. Sounds like it's the whole name of the game as far as like analyzing this experience.
Yes, I guess I'm just saying that in a real long way, but yeah. And that's where this shape that is on some of the paintings came from. It started, it sounds so silly, but like as you're painting, you'll just see things kind of, and that was one of the things that made everything click, that was like a missing piece that needed to be there, but it didn't feel like it came from me. You know what I mean? And then I was like, how can I just feel like that all the time? You know, like nothing is actually coming from me or from you, or you know, how can I just let these things flow?
Just hold your breath for a long time.
Yeah.
That's interesting to consciously chase that state of mind, because I don't think you can just, here we are, I'm ready. It's cool to hear you break it down, how you kind of try to recreate that thing in different time and space.
Yes.
An occurrence that was an accident almost, or not intentional.
And even the words, I feel like, fall flat in what I'm really trying to say, but yeah.
It'd be interesting for you to see a video of yourself in that split second, because it probably would look like nothing happened.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it would have just been like,
you're back.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, yeah. Yep.
So how long has this character been oozing out of you? Because it seems like it came on heavy not so long ago.
He came, I want to say, I don't know, not a year ago though. And it started from the marker drawings. And one night where Leela, my daughter, my oldest of the two, loves Jerry Garcia for some reason, and wanted to watch videos of him playing. So I was showing her live videos of him playing. And then I started doodling and I was trying to draw Jerry's face. And then I drew him old Jerry with the big white beard. And then I was like, oh, maybe I'll make his beard longer. And then, oh, what if and then it just started to look kind of like this guy. And I gave him and it wasn't Jerry anymore. Then it was just this wizard-esque kind of person.
Yeah.
And then he was just so fun to draw that I kept drawing him. And the first couple of versions of him didn't really look how he looks now, but just like showing up every day at the same time and having a devotion, like a practice to drawing him, he became more and more clear and more in focus. And I started to kind of feel his temperament, kind of what he's like. He started to feel real, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I have a couple different folders of the Observer. This is just not a story. These are just photos of him, but I mean, just images of him. But then there's
photos.
Yeah. To me, I guess they.
Yeah.
And all these are just ink to paper automatics. So these are the early ones. So you're gonna kind of see him change. Like these are from the beginning, and then he just started to become that after a while. Some of the most fun to draw with automatics is just kind of like weird machine stuff. And then it's funny because it starts looking like it's something, like it makes sense, but it's really nothing. This one, he's trying to remember the last 2 steps to the solving a Rubik's Cube while he's fishing. But the main point, the through line with all of these is no reference and no like pencil first, then sketch. It's just see what comes out and submit to it. And sometimes when something goes how you're not, just weird, and you follow it, it turns into, it's basically like you channel this onto the paper and then you get to look at it like later and be like, whoa, like I feel like I'm looking at someone else's work when I draw these. Also, my kids want to know what he looks like without a hat on, so I try to figure it out, but I don't know yet. None of those are right. I think one day I want to make mobiles if it feels right, but that's something that started to spawn from him. I'm like, oh, I want to make like Borneo-esque shaped mobile pieces that don't touch, but they like cross through each other, you know? And then these ones I made one after another one night. I wanted to explore the idea of him sitting in this pot for so long that this tree grew around him, just so he could see what it would feel like to do that. And then some of them he was like manipulating the tree, I guess, with his glasses. I kind of feel like everything he can see through his glasses he can alter, I guess. I don't know what's going on.
It's cool how the lore just gets deeper and deeper as you explore the different possibilities.
Exactly. That whole idea of why a wizard looking at a phone feels wrong is what's so cool about it, because I feel like we're all wizards, so it should look like that when you look at anybody looking at a phone. You know what I mean? Like,
man, that is very cool.
Thank you. Thank you for looking at each one of them. It's kind of tied into what I was trying to get at earlier, Dave, when I was tattooing your shoulder, about how it's like I can see each person not as like a client or you're older than me or young. It kind of feels like I can see the child in each person. And it's what I mean by that is like the thought of tattooing one of my own kids. It's terrifying. It's like to permanently mark you. And that same feeling of thinking about tattooing them transfers into everybody that I tattoo. You know what I'm saying? So there's this heaviness to everyone. Like the fact that it hurts, you know, the fact that they're gonna be looking at it way longer than I am, you know, and you feel like no matter what, at the root of it, it's service. Like you're like like Hanuman service, you know, not like service, like how you think, like someone who, you know, might be doing a service job with bitterness. I'm like, oh, I don't want to be cleaning up. Some people might like it, but I'm just, you know what I mean? It's not a service like, well, I got to do whatever they ask. That's not what I mean because I hear some tattooers be like, it's a service. It doesn't have to be fun. Or like my parents were always like, life is hard. It's work. It doesn't have to be fun, you know? And I'm kind of glad they said that because you know how you can learn a lot about what not to do from certain people? It's kind of like that. It's like, that doesn't feel right or sound right, you know? Like, and the pursuit of fun, I think, drives everything, all of it too.
I hate to chalk stuff up to luck because I think luck like diminishes work and stuff that people put in, but I think that we're lucky that the thing we love is a feasible career path,
Yes.
or it can
Yeah.
be, for the right people
Yeah.
and the right, you know,
Yeah.
personality type and stuff. I
Hmm.
don't think anyone's lucky to be a tattooer necessarily because there's so much work that goes into it.
Hmm.
Even to do it at a mediocre level is like such a high amount of work to get to
Yes.
even that point.
Yeah.
So to take it further,
For some reason, fortunate sounds better, but I guess luck and fortune is same thing, I guess,
I've just
right?
known
Like,
people that are like, "Oh, you're so lucky, do
yeah.
something you
Yep.
love," and I'm
Hmm.
like, I understand that that shouldn't offend me, but I'm like, God,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
sure,
Yeah.
I'm lucky,
Yeah.
but like, there's
I
an
know what
element
you
to that.
mean.
It's
Yeah,
like
because
the thing we love, we're lucky that we can do this, and people pay us for it, and it can support our
yes,
families and
I
give us the
agree
freedom.
with what you're saying. It almost sounds to me, it comes across as like they're diminishing the amount of work it took to get to be able
But I
to
know
have
that they're
fun doing.
not.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I guess it's more they're probably projecting because they're like, I work, this job that maybe it's not fueling my passions or
Hmm.
tickling my funny bone.
Yep. Yep.
So
Yeah.
I get it.
Which I've seen people turn tattooing into that, though,
Yeah.
for themselves. I mean,
And that's what I mean. If you
yeah.
let it kind of pile on you and just become this thing.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
I've felt
Yeah.
like that though in
Yeah.
tattooing, and it sucks.
Hmm.
And like trying to pull out of that, I don't know. I felt the last number of years, I feel like I've kind of hit a stride where I'm able to appreciate it for what it is in a way that's like long term. I can plug my brain into it, and it just feels good all the time.
Hmm. Hmm. I've dabbled with an interesting scenario where when I'll have a lot of time just to create freely and fun. Like when that first started unfolding about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, there was this interesting mental thing that was happening when I would go to the shop to tattoo where, because at first there felt like there was a slight separation between the two. It felt
Yeah.
like tattooing is very like each step is very structured and it builds on the next and which is what in the time I was wrong. But I felt like the opposite of play and all this. And it didn't, what I started to notice that week where it was like, well, kind of what I was talking about with the heaviness that comes with tattooing somebody. I felt like I could be doing an injustice or a disservice to people by tattooing them if I'm in that headspace. So instead of pushing through and just doing it, I took
Yeah.
a little bit of time away and realized that it's again that's an illusion that there's a separateness between the two at all. Like tattooing can have the same play and fun energy that the paintings and stuff do too. But I notice it's teamwork. You can't just walk in and be like, I'm gonna have fun today and play. Like
Look
like
out, world.
yeah, like the person you're tattooing has to vibrate at the exact same frequency for that to
Yeah.
even be possible. And then
Yeah.
if they're not, it's awesome too. If they're like, no, this isn't what I want, and it's like awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you feel like your clients have been pretty open to like different ideas and stuff that you've been pushing, or
I'd
did it take a
say
while to click?
I'd say it recently it's been simultaneous with the evolution. Like I'll be working on something new will unfold, and then that week at the shop, the way I've been tattooing a lot lately, unless it's like a sleeve or a back or something where I have to have it prepared beforehand, I like to sit and talk and figure it out with them
Yeah.
and everything. And that has been really helping the playful nature of it with certain people who are into that, because it can change day to day. Like I love
Yeah.
the idea of both people waking up having no idea what permanent thing they're about to make. It's like, and then those days always end the best. Like they're always both people are surprised at whatever it was made, and
Yeah.
like the tattooer and the person getting tattooed.
So if I guess the focus is kind of just play and freedom and trying to keep that at the forefront of your approach, as far as like the more overarching quest, where do you want to go with everything? Like what are your goals?
So that's interesting too. I've noticed that things that I deeply wanted when I was in single digit numbers in my life were seeds being planted. And now it took 20 years or so, but I'm seeing that the things I was planting in my youth are blooming finally now. And I didn't realize that that was even happening until recently, and then so as far as goals, I see them more. It's almost like I feel like it's a lot like how dreams kind of work, where you'll be like, man, I really hope I don't get chased by a monster. And all of a sudden you're being chased by some kind of monster. That's how I feel like this waking reality works, but it abides by physical time. So the things that you repel or avert from or really desire, that it'll happen. You know, it just has to abide by the way time is and stuff. So I don't really set rigid goals. Like I'm not like one day I'm gonna be doing this or that. Like I see it more like hunger for certain things, and then the way it just organically unfolds is better than I could have tried to plan. You know, it's kind of like that, you know.
Yeah, I guess if I had to define it, as again as an outsider, to see the way that you put so much out, it seems like the journey is more than the destination, you know, that very played out kind of saying, but it seems to be true.
I was at an art show that Adam Shrewsbury had a couple years ago, and I said something similar to him that you're saying. I was like, just the amount that you have here, like how in the world, like it's so much to, and he said something, not to quote exactly, but he said something like, the moment I was born, the house was set on fire, and I've just been trying to throw as much out the window before it goes up in flames. And I was like, oof, yeah, dude, yes, yeah, but oh, like it was just a hit. Yeah. It just made so much sense.
Yeah, no, that does make sense.
That's how it feels.
Well, sometimes you do a drawing and it's not what you want it to be. Sometimes you do a tattoo, it's not what you want it to be.
Well, the only freedom is in realizing that nothing is ever what you want it to be. It's like in Hinduism or Vedanta, it's called renunciation of the fruits of the action, right? Which means I do my best at whatever I'm doing, the best that I can in this moment, and the result of that is not up to me. It's like with the ceramics, what goes into the kiln is different than what comes out of the kiln, and I'm not in control what emerges from the kiln. I'm not in control whether I like it or I hate it or I think it's beautiful or I think it's garbage or other people love it, you know? Right. Like I'm not in control of any of the outcomes of the action, but what I can control is how well I do the action, like how present I am for it. But beyond that, you know, but like, yeah, there's a real freedom in going, I don't know.